Hello everyone, welcome back. Sorry for the very long delay of this. Kind of been lazy and just haven't really had any motivation again to do this. But it's not really a good excuse to not do this. So yeah, screw it. Welcome back to Clive Cussler's Pacific Vortex. We're on chapter 3. Long freaking wait for that chapter. I just have to now find chapter 3. There it is. Chapter 3. Pitt hunched over the bar of the old Royal Hawaiian Hotel, staring vacantly at his drink as his mind wandered over the events of the day. They flickered past his unblinking eyes and dissolved into a haze. One scene refused to fade away as the memory of Admiral Hunter's paled face as he read the contents of the capsule. The terrible senselessness of the Starbuck's tragic fate, and the bewildering pentatonic words of Commander Dupree. After Hunter had finished, he slowly looked up and nodded at Pitt. Pitt shook the Admiral's leathery, outstretched hand, in silence, mumbled his goodbye to the other officers, and, as if in a hypnotic state, slowly walked from the room. He could not remember driving through the twisted traffic flow of Nimitz Highway. He could not remember entering his hotel room, showering and dressing, and leaving in search of some opaque, unknown objective. Even now, as he slowly swirled his scotch within the glass, his ears heard nothing of the babble of tongues around him in the cocktail lounge. There was something strangely sinister about his discovery of the Starbucks final message. He idly reflected. There was a wary, retrospective thought that fought desperately to surface from the inner recesses of his brain, but it faded and fell back into the nothingness from which it came. Out of the corner of his eye, Pitt caught a man further down the bar holding up a glass in his direction, gesturing the offer of a free drink. It was Captain Oral Sinada? We're gonna go with that, of how pronouncing that one. But like Pitt, he was dressed casually in slacks and a flowered Hawaiian aloha shirt. Sinada came over and leaned on the bar beside him. He was still sweating and dabbed at his forehead and wiped his palms almost constantly with a handkerchief he carried. "May I do the honors?" Sinada said, with a smile that smacked of insincerity. Pitt held a full glass. "Thanks, but I haven't made a dent in the one I've got." Pitt had taken little notice of Sinada earlier at Pearl Harbor, but now he was mildly surprised to see something he missed. Except for the fact that Sinada outweighed Pitt by a paunchy 15 pounds, they could have passed for cousins. Oh, is that right? Trying to adjust my fingers there. Sinada swirled the ice around in his rum Collins, nervously avoiding Pitt's expressionless gaze. "I'd like to apologize again for that little misunderstanding this afternoon." "Forget it, Captain. I wasn't exactly a paragon of courtesy myself." "A nasty business, the Starbucks loss," Sinada took a swallow from his glass. "Most mysteries have a way of eventually getting solved. The Thresher, the Bluefin, the Scorpion. The Navy never gave up until everyone was found." "We're not repeating the act this time," Sinada said grimly. "This one we'll never find." "Never say never." "The 3 tragedies you mentioned, Major, occurred in the Atlantic. The Starbuck had the fatal misfortune of vanishing in the Pacific. He paused to wipe his neck. We have a saying in the Navy about ships lost out there. Those who lie in the Atlantic Sea are recalled by shrines, wreaths, and poetry. But those who lie in the Pacific Sea lie forgotten for all eternity. But you have the position from Dupree's message, Pitt said. With luck, your sonar should detect her within a week's sweep of the area. The sea doesn't give up its secrets easily, Major, Siniata said, his empty glass on the bar. Well, I must be going. I was supposed to meet someone, but apparently she stood me up. Pitt shook Siniata. Come on, mouth, work with the English. Pitt shook Siniata's outstretched hand and grinned. I know the feeling. Goodbye and good luck. Same to you, Captain. Siniata. I can't spell it. The first 3 minutes or 10 minutes that you can't. The first 3. I can't say the F-bomb now. Not going to. Sorry for the delay. Siniata? Yes. We'll go with Siniata for now. Might have not been the one I said earlier, but screw it. Siniata turned and sidestepped through the crowd into the hotel lobby entrance and became lost in the milling sea of heads. Pitt still hadn't touched his drink. After Siniata's departure, he sensed a maddening loneliness, despite the surrounding din of voices in the crowded room. Pitt had the urge to get very drunk. He wanted to forget the name Starbuck and not concentrate on more important matters. He concentrated on more important matters, such as picking up a vacationing secretary who left all her sexual inhibitions back in Omaha, Nebraska. He downed his drink and ordered another. He was just about ready to try out his soft-tongued affability when he became aware of the touch of 2 soft, feminine breasts pressing into his back, and a pair of slender white hands encircling his waist. He unhurriedly turned and found his eyes confronted by the impish face of Adrian Hunter. Hello, Dirk, she murmured in a husky voice. Need a drinking partner? I might. What's in it for me? She tightened her hands around his waist. We could go to my place, tune in the late movie, and take notes. Can't. Mother wants me home early. Oh, come now, lover. You wouldn't deny an old friend an evening of scandalous behavior, would you? That what old friends are for? He asked sarcastically. Her hands had moved downward, and he pulled them away. You should find yourself a new hobby. At the rate you indulge your fantasies, I'm surprised you haven't been sold for scrap by now. That's an interesting thought. She smiled at him. I could always use the money. I wonder what I'd bring. Probably the price of a well-used Edsel. That's probably in reference to the old Ford car, the Edsel. Didn't sell very well. Kind of looked ugly. Pause the video. Open up Safari or Google, whatever you use. Google it. Come right back. Or wait till the end of the video. Your call. She thrust out her chest and faked a pout. You only hurt the one you love, so I'm told. Considering the exhaustive pace of her nightlife, Pitt thought she was still a damn good-looking woman. He remembered the soft feel of her body when he last made love to her. He also remembered that no matter how relentless his attack, nor how expert his technique, he could never satisfy her. Not to change the subject of our stimulating conversation, but I met your father for the first time today. He waited for a hint of surprise. There was none. She seemed quite unconcerned. Really? What did old Lord would Nelson have to talk about? For one thing, he didn't care for the way I was dressed. Don't feel badly. He doesn't care for the way I dress either. He took a sip from his scotch and gazed at her over the top of the glass. In your case, I can't blame him. No man likes to see his daughter come off like a back alley hooker. She ignored his last remark that her father had come face to face with but one of her many lovers. Didn't interest her at all. She wiggled into the next bar stool and gazed at him with a seductive look burning in her eyes. The effect heightened by the long black hair widening around one shoulder. Her skin glowed like polished bronze under the dim lights of the cocktail lounge. She whispered, "How about that drink?" Pitt nodded at the bartender. A brandy Alexander for the lady." She scowled a little and then smiled. "Don't you know that being referred to as a lady is very old-fashioned? An old carryover. All men want a girl. Just like the girl that married your old dad. Mom was a drag," she said, her voice elaborately casual. "How about Dad?" Dad was the will o' the wisp. He was never home. He was always chasing after some smelling old derelict barge or forgotten shipwreck. He loved the ocean more than he loved his own family. The night I was born, he was rescuing the crew of a sinking oil tanker in the mid-Pacific. When I graduated from high school, he was searching the sea. He was at sea searching for a missing aircraft. And when Mother died, our dear Admiral was charting icebergs off Greenland with some long-haired freaks from the Eton School of Oceanography. That might actually be an actual occasion. Feel free to Google it if you're into that. Her eyes shifted just enough to let Pitt know he was onto her sore spot. So don't bother shedding tears over this father-daughter relationship. The Admiral and I tolerate each other purely out of social convenience. Pitt stared down at her. "You're all grown up now. Why don't you leave home?" The bartender brought her drink, and she sipped it. What better deal can a girl find? I'm continually surrounded by handsome males in uniform. Look at the odds. Thousands of men and no competition. Why should I leave the old homestead and scrounge for leftovers? No, the Admiral needs the image of a family man, and I need Dad for the fringe benefits that come with being an Admiral's daughter. Then she looked at him, faking a shy and bashful expression. "My apartment, shall we?" "You'll have to take a rain check, Miss Hunter," said a delicate voice behind them. "The captain is waiting for me." Adrian and Pitt turned in unison. There stood the most exotic-looking woman Pitt had ever seen. She possessed eyes so gray they defied reality, and her hair fell in an enchanting cascade of red, presenting a vibrant contrast against the green, oriental sheath dress that adhered, I think that's the word, adhered to her curvaceous body. Pitt quickly searched his memory, but with no success. He was certain he had never laid eyes on this beauty before. When he rose off the bar stool, he was presently surprised to feel his heart accelerate. She was the first woman to ignite his emotions on a first meeting since a basset hound eyed blonde in the 5th grade who bit him on the arm during recess. Adrian was the first to break the silence. I'm sorry, honey. But as they say in the old family mining claim, you're trespassing. Adrian seemed to enjoy the situation. To her, the intruder was no more than an nuisance. Nuisance? No, that's the word I don't normally say. No. Give it a sec. I'm gonna put that down on the book and pull up another device. Type in that word and try and figure out how the fuck to say it. Because you'd think, after being alive for 17 years, I'd know how to speak most English words, but alas, I fucking don't. So, yeah, that's fantastic. Also going to take a drink because I am getting very thirsty.
Nuisance.
Alright. Nuisance. That's how I thought it was, but I had to make sure. And now, swig of Monster. Alright. And we resume. Just fingers. Do not block words. Nuisance? Yes. But, yeah. The intruder was no more than a nuisance. She turned, offering her back to the girl, and began sipping her drink again. The gray eyes never strayed from Adrian. Your rudeness, Miss Hunter, is only surpassed by your reputation as a tramp. Adrian was too cool to give up an inch. She sat, immobile, staring straight ahead at the girl's reflection in the mirror behind the bar. $50, she said loudly, so all within 30 feet could hear. Consider your amateur standing and less than mediocre talents, you're vastly overpriced. Several customers sitting in the immediate neighborhood of the bar were listening intently to the caustic exchange. The women were frowning, but the men were grinning, secretly envying the speechless male who was trapped in the no man's land of the sex battle. Pitt was adequately awed. It was a new experience to have two lovely females trading barbs over his possession. His ego basked in the sheer exhilaration of the moment. May I speak to you in private, Miss Hunter? Asked the mysterious girl in the green dress. Adrian nodded. Why not? She turned and slid smoothly off the bar stool, following the stranger into the open doors that led to the hotel's private beach. Pitt stared in rapt fascination at both pairs of rounded hips as they rotated in a fluid-like motion that was, or so Pitt imagined, suggestive of two beach balls caught in the same swirling whirlpool. Pitt sighed and leaned limply against the bar, feeling like a spider eyeing two flies circling his net, and wishing they'd entangle somewhere else. Then he caught the open stares of his audience. He grinned and bowed, acknowledging of their steadfast attention before he turned back to the bar. There had been enough surprises for one day, he ruefully. Holy shit, I'm terrible at English. Ruefully admitted to himself. Where will it all end? Heeding the call for more courage, he signaled the bartender and ordered another cutty on the rocks, a double this time. 15 minutes later, Grey Eyes returned and stood directly behind him. Pitt was so deeply lost in thought that it took him several seconds before he sensed her presence and looked up to be met by her reflection in the mirror. Her lips moved in what could have been the beginnings of a smile. To the victor goes the spoils. It was a question asked hesitantly. Holy shit. Why is the English language so fucking stupid? Like, I can read that, fine, but try and pronounce it. It's like, I'm a person who's never read a book before. I don't know. I've read this book multiple times. It's one of my favorites. Out of curiosity, if anyone made it this far and they're still alive and like haven't passed out from how fucking boring my voice must be, just like type in the comments. Shit, I don't even know a good word. Actually, no. Type in the comments summer. You'll find out what that means in a few seconds. Maybe, hopefully. Is it this chat? Maybe I'll have to wait till next episode, which I have no idea when that would be, but anyway, the bruise beneath her right eye had begun the transformation from red to purple, and a small cut on her lower lip unleashed a few drops of blood that trickled down her chin, falling with precise accuracy down the cleavage between her breasts. Pitt still thought she was the most desirable woman he'd ever seen. And the loser, he asked, she'll be in need of heavy makeup for a few days, but I'll think she'll survive to fight another day. Pitt pulled his handkerchief from a pocket, wrapped it around an ice cube fished from his glass, and touched it lightly to her lip. Here, keep this pressed against the cut. It will contain the swelling. She forced a She forced a Wayne. I'm gonna go with Wayne. Wayne. I'm gonna go with Wayne. Smile and nodded in thank you. His meddling audience was back, this time with a concerted leer that bordered on infamy. Quickly, he paid off the bartender, taking the girl by the arm and dragging her from the lounge to the beach outside. He scanned the shoreline, but there was no sign of Adrian. Mind telling me what happened? She had to remove the ice cube to speak. Isn't it obvious? Miss Hunter wouldn't listen to reason. He looked at her, half uncertainly, half speculatively. Give me a fucking second. I'll figure this shit out. Speculativity. We'll just go with that. Why you liked me, he thought. Why fight over a man she'd never met? The jackpot question. What was her game? Pitt didn't kid himself. No movie studio would ever star him in a remake of Don Juan? I don't know that one. Feel free to Google that one. Don Juan. D-O-N space J-J-A-U-A-N. Actually, you know what? I'll Google it for you. Just give me a sec. Don't even worry about it. Alright. Don Juan is a legendary fictional Spanish character, a libertine, I guess. I guess that who devotes his life to seducing women. There was a 17th century play and a 1787 opera with music by Mozart. Damn. That might actually be good. See if you can find a YouTube video of that. After you finish this one, of course. Holy shit, this one's getting long. Almost a half hour. That is, yeah, getting very long. Much longer is this chapter? 2, 3, 5, 8, 10. Damn, there's still a lot of this chapter left. This is gonna be a long episode. Didn't help that I paused it like twice, but you know, he had his share of women, but never before the usual preliminaries. The artful little lies, the step-by-step maneuvers, he decided not to delve into her reasons, but let the mystery heighten the intrigue. Shall we walk along the beach? He asked. I was hoping you'd suggest that. She smiled. It immediately had him in her power, and she knew it. She shrewdly watched his eyes wander to her breasts, then down her body to her legs. Her breasts were surprisingly small and taut in the contrast of the accented curves that abounded the rest of her figure. In the moonlight and the flaming glow from the torches staked around the hotel terrace, he could see where the deeply tanned flesh, speckled by blood, plunged invitingly beneath the dress. Lower and beyond, her waist gently tapered into a firm, flat stomach, which then exploded into a brace of pneumatic hips that fought to escape the tight seams of their green prison. She looked Indian, but the flaming red hair that fell to the small of her back did not attest to it. If you keep staring at me, I'll be forced to charge you admission. He made an effort to look shyly embarrassed, but didn't pull it off. I thought art galleries were free. She squeezed his arm. Not if you wish to purchase something. I like to browse. I rarely buy. So you're a man of principles. I have a few, but they don't apply to women. Her perfume was getting to him, a fragrance that somehow seemed familiar. She stopped, circling him for support, and removed her shoes, wriggling her toes in the cool sand of Waikiki Beach. They strolled on in silence for a few minutes. She tightened her grip on his arm and pulled herself close as they walked. Her eyes glinted in the dim light, and she said in a low voice, "My name is Summer." See, I told you know what that means soon. Pitt said nothing as he enclosed her in his arms and lightly kissed her on her swollen lips. And suddenly, the warning bells were clanging in his mind. But the warning came too late. The pain burst on him first. His mouth dropped open, and a gasp that started deep down his throat erupted into the quiet air as Summer thrust her knee into his groin. What caused the cells in his brain to order such a lightning reaction he would never know. But the haze of shock, he barely saw his fist lash out in a burning reflex action and catch Summer solidly on the right side of her jaw. She swayed drunkenly for an instant, and then crumpled silently onto the sand. The hidden, unsuspected resources ready to be called upon in the moment of desperation kept Pitt from sliding into an unconscious void. The agony in his lower body forced him to suck in air in great wheezing gasps. He slowly sunk to his knees beside the inert form of the girl, clutching his groin and swaying in pain. Pitt clenched his teeth together until his jaws ached, damming back any outcry from the agony. He dug his knees into the soft sand and swayed back and forth. Discovered hunched over an unconscious girl and holding his hands tightly between his legs could result in embarrassing questions. Fortunately, except for a circle of beach boys and hotel guests who were seated around a small fire about 200 feet away, the beach was vacant. I doubt you'd be able to find that in today's time, but this is a while back, before cell phones. I don't know exactly when, but a while back. 4 minutes passed, 4 minutes during which the grinding torment finally faded to a dull throbbing ache. It was then he noticed something gleaming in Summer's hand, something glass-like reflected by the flames of the flickering tiki torches. He crawled over to the girl, crouched over her quiet form, and gently pulled a hypodermic syringe from between her loosely clasped fingers. Pitt was at a loss. In the faint light, Summer looked no more than 25, gentle and sweet. Holding the syringe, he wondered what it held, as he dropped the liquid-filling glass tube carefully into his breast pocket. He leaned over, awkwardly heaved the girl over his shoulder, and rose shakily to his feet. It had suddenly occurred to him that she'd probably had a couple of friends lurking about in the shadows. He wasn't about to wait for the posse to block his pass. His hotel was a good 3 blocks away, so he balanced his load, steadied himself, and began limping stiffly across the sand. His one hope of getting past the roving crowds of tourists who wandered the sidewalks at night was to skirt through the heavy foliage of the gardens. He certainly didn't want to meet a cruising policeman or a do-gooder vacationer who might conjure up the notion of playing Herbert Hero and rescuing little Eva from the villainous Simon Lapit. Along the sidewalks, it would have been an easy walk of 5 minutes, but it took 20 by the way of the backyard jungle. He paused in the shadows, catching his breath, and waited for a group of drunken party-goers to stagger out of view. He savored the delicate fragrance that whispered about Summer's body. This time, he recognized it as Plumera. It was not an uncommon scent in the Hawaiian Islands, but it was the first time Pitt had sensed its presence on a woman. His hotel was just across the street now, the lights behind the lobby door beckoning with womb-like safety. At the first lull in traffic, Pitt discovered the distance on the run. Pitt covered the distance, not discovered. Covered the distance on the run. His face strained from the ache in his groin, and his lungs tortured from the physical effort of carrying a dead weight for over 400-yard obstacle in the dark. He threaded his way quickly around the parked cars at the curb, edged up to the doorway of the building, and cast a wary eye in the lobby. His luck deserted him momentarily. A cleaning woman was vacuuming The carpet outside the elevators. A large, dark-skinned behemoth of a Hawaiian woman with a "I'll scream for a cop" look. He moved around the corner and trotted down the ramp leading to the underground garage. Except for a sprinkling of cars stationed throughout the dim concrete interior, the garage was empty. He found an open elevator, entered, and pushed the panel button, and leaned against the heavy teak railing that ran along the closet-like walls. Pitt was a damp mass of sweat now. The exertion and the humidity of the night had combined to push him within a hairline of total exhaustion. As he stood there, stooped under Summer's weight, he managed to catch his breath. The elevator hummed monotonously and cooperated by not opening on any other floor than the one Pitt had selected. The panel light blinked 10. Pitt's luck struck him clumsily in his pants. Struck him in the hall. Struck him. The hall was clear in both directions. Groping clumsily in his pants pocket for several frustrating seconds, he finally managed to extract a key and shove it into the lock of the carved rosewood door marked 1010. A plushly decorated suite was a luxury Pitt could hardly afford on his salary, but he justified its existence under the excuse that it was his first vacation in 3 years. He entered the bedroom and dumped Summer unceremoniously on the bed. Another time, staring down at a woman who was so delicate and smooth, he would have felt desire. Not tonight. Mentally, emotionally, and physically, Pitt had had it. The day began and ended as one grueling endurance run. He left Summer blissfully unconscious and entered the bathroom where he undressed and took a shower. Nothing made sense. Why would a perfect stranger want to kill him? His only beneficiary was his little white-haired mother. Unless she'd given up charity teas and hooked rugs and taken up with the mafia, she'd have no motive. Besides, he grinned to himself at the sheer fantasy of it all. What proof did he have that the hypodermic syringe held poison? A drug? That was a semi-credible possibility. But again, why? He knew no military codes and could think of no nuclear bomb secrets, no classified missile locations, no top secret plan for the destruction of the world. His thoughts wandered back to Summer's magnificent beauty. Then he finally forced his mind back to the reality of the moment. Closing the tap and stepping out of the shower stall, he slipped a robe over his broad shoulders and, returning to the bedroom, placed a damp washcloth over the girl's forehead, noting with a tinge of sadistic pleasure that she would wear a healthy-looking bruise on her jaw in the morning. He shook Summer roughly by both shoulders, slowly, reluctantly, not wanting to part with the contentment of oblivion, and murmuring incoherently in a soft voice. Her big gray eyes crept open. Awakening in a strange place would have startled most women, not Summer. She was tough. Pitt could almost see the circuits of her mind burst into sudden operation. Her eyes darted about the room, first to Pitt, and then to the door, to the balcony, and back to Pitt again. She stared at him casually, a little too casually to be genuine. And then she raised her hand and lightly touched her jaw, wincing at the contact. You hit me? It was more a question than a statement. Yes, he grinned. And now that I have you on home ground, I'll think I'll rape you. You should never do that. That's a terrible, terrible thing to do. But he's not being serious, so don't cancel him. And the author who wrote this, I believe, passed away last year, so you can't even get angry at him. It's also just a book. Don't cancel this. Fuck off. At last her eyes came wide. He wouldn't dare. How do you know I haven't already? She almost fell for it. Her hand began moving down across her lower stomach and then suddenly stopped. You're not that perverted. Who said I was? She looked at Pitt in a very peculiar way. I was told. She stopped herself and avoided his eyes. You should have been more careful, said Pitt reproachfully, believing nasty old rumors and running up and down Waikiki Beach, jabbing hypodermic needles into defenseless men can get you into a heap of trouble. She stared at him for a few seconds, her lips moving as she were about to reply, but uncertainly, fuck it. A word, you figure out how to say it yourself, ungrateful bastards, slowly swelled into those fantastic gray eyes. I don't know what you mean. No matter. Pitt turned his back on her and reached for her telephone. I'll let the police figure your game. That's what honest citizens like me pay them for. A mistake. Her voice suddenly turned hard and cold. I'll scream rape, and with these marks on my face, who will they believe, you or me? Pitt picked up the telephone and began punching in the numbered buttons. There was not the slightest doubt that they'd believe you. That is, until Adrian Hunter testifies in my defense. She probably has a few marks of her own. He turned his attention to the phone. The voice that answered on the other end of the line surrendered surrendered after the fifth hello and hung up. At the dial tone, Pitt said, "Hello, I'd like to report an assault." That was as far as he got. Someone leaped off the bed and pushed the receiver down. Please, you don't understand. Her voice was low and desperate. That's the understatement of the evening, Pitt said, angrily. He grabbed her by the shoulders, squeezing hard and staring unblinking, only a few inches from her widening pupils. Kick a man in the balls and jam a hypodermic needle into his back, and then act like little Miss Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm when you screw up. Just what in the hell is your game? She started to struggle, then relaxed immediately. You gangster! Her voice was a savage whisper. The obsolete expression caught Pitt off guard. Slowly, he released his hold and stepped back. That's me. One of Big Al Capone's torpedoes, fresh off the boat from Chicago. I wish to heaven I'd... She broke off and crossed her arms and massaged the reddening skin on her shoulders. You are the devil. Pitt felt no hate in return, only a touch of remorse as he noted the angry masses of red welts where his fingers had dug into her flesh. There was a long pause before he spoke. I'll tell you what you wish to know, despite the subtle change in tone. There was nothing soft in the coldness of her eyes, but first, could you help me to the bathroom? I think I'm going to be sick. Pitt extended his hand and grabbed her wrist, feeling her muscles tighten under his grip. Suddenly, she braced one foot against the railing of the bed and threw every ounce of her slender body into her shoulder block into Pitt's stomach. She caught him off balance. He fell backwards over a chair, crashing into the floor and taking the bedstand lamp with him. Pitt had hardly collided with the shag carpet. Wow, shag. Damn. Real porno vibe off that. Summer jerked open the sliding door and vanished out onto the balcony. Pitt made no effort to rise, but leaned back, relaxed into a more comfortable position on the floor. 10 seconds passed. He could hold it back no longer. He began to laugh. Next time you enter the man's 10th floor apartment, you best carry a parachute. She slowly stepped back into the bedroom, her lovely face livid with rage. "There is an evil word for you. I can think of at least a dozen," he said, smiling politely. She moved to the other side of the room, putting as much space as the room allowed between them, and lowered herself into a chair, her eyes exploring his. "If I answer your questions, what then?" "Nothing," Pitt said quietly. "If when you tell a story I can swallow without gagging, you're free to leave." "I don't believe you, my dear girl. I'm not the Boston Strangler or Jack the Ripper. And I assure you, I'm not in the habit of abducting innocent virgins from Geeky Beach." "Please," she implored softly, "it was not my intent to harm you. I must work for my government just as you must work for yours. You have information I was ordered to obtain. The content of the syringe was an ordinary solution of scopolamine. Scopolamine? Truth serum. Yes, sir. Your reputation with women made you a prime suspect. You're not making sense. The United States Navy, or at least its intelligence section, has reason to believe one of Miss Hunter's lovers has been trying to gain classified information concerning her father's fleet operations. I was ordered to investigate your involvement with her. That's all there is to it. That wasn't all there was to it. There was no doubt in Pitt's mind that she was lying. He also knew that she was trying to buy time. The only classified information that Adrian Hunter possessed was how the Navy's up-and-coming crop of future admirals rated her on a personal lovemaking scale. As Pitt rose from the floor and moved in front of her, she saw the brutal gleam in his eyes, visibly tensed. Confused and angry, Pitt found himself sensing a strong degree of compassion towards the girl. He gazed at the red hair tousled over one eye, and the long, slender hands reclining loosely on an inviting lap. "I'm sorry it turned out this way. Damn sorry." He felt a little foolish. "Too bad you ruined a good thing. You're not with naval intelligence, dear heart. You're not even a bona fide American. Hell, nobody's used the term gangster in this country since the 1930s. You also failed your secret agent test. No professional would have bought that phony telephone call to the police, but you did. Anyway, the Navy isn't in the habit of allowing their female operators to run loosely among villain types, minus a backup crew armed to the teeth within screaming distance. You don't carry a purse, and your dress is too tight to hide a transmitter to warn the watchdogs when the going gets nasty. The shock treatment was working too well. Her face drained of all color, and she truly looked sick." He went on, "And in case you think I might be as pure as virgin Al as you are, you're sadly mistaken. I checked you over from hair to pointed toenails when I carried you here from the beach. The only thing you've got on under that dress, is a tiny holster for the syringe taped to the inside of your left thigh." Summer's eyes were glazed in revulsion? Fuck it. That's what it's gonna be. Pitt couldn't remember when a woman had looked at him like that. She turned and stared at the bathroom, as if she was making up her mind to throw up in the sink or on the shag carpet. The sink won. She rose unsteadily from the chair and reeled into the bathroom, slamming the door. Quick question: do you guys puke in the sink or in toilets? Like, I've always puked in the toilet because you can just flush it right on down right afterwards. It's much easier. You don't have to clean a sink. Oh, yeah. Anyway, moving on. Almost done in this chapter. It's only been a fucking hour. Holy shit. He soon heard the sound of water gushing as the Commodore was flushed. Well, maybe she did puke in the sink or toilet. Then the faucet on the sink was turned on. Pitt walked over to the balcony and gazed at the twinkling lights of Honolulu in the distance. While far below, the ocean breakers droned against the beach. He lingered at the balcony, perhaps a little too long. He was jolted back to reality by the sound of running water in the bathroom. The flow was too constant, too prolonged for a normal routine. It took him 3 steps to reach the door, locked on the inside. No time for a theatrical "Are you in there?" line. Balancing on one leg, he kicked hard at the lock with the other, revealing an empty room. Summer was gone. Her only trace was a trail of knotted bath towels tied to the shower curtain railing and stretching over the windsill. That wouldn't work unless that was like a really strong shower railing, because or curtain railing. It was like I was at my grandparents' place and I had to take a shower there, and they have one of those things. And I put my towel on the thing and the fucking thing collapsed. Terrifying experience. I would not recommend doing that. Yeah, don't do that. I had to put that up by myself while I was having a shower, or actually just after I had my shower. So that was fantastic. Casting an ancient's eye below, he saw the last towel dangling only 4 feet above Chase lounge on the balcony belonging to the room beneath his. No lights were showing, no shouts of alarm from the tenants. She had escaped safely. For that he was thankful. He stood there recalling her face, a face that was probably compassionate and tender and gay. Then he cursed to himself for letting her get away. Well, that was chapter 4. Or chapter 3, not 4. Chapter 4 is next, and we'll have to wait a while for that, because I don't have motivation to read another 50 fucking minute chapter. I don't know how long that one is, but I'm not gonna check. So, do the YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, all that fun shit, and if you feel like it, come back for the next chapter when I upload in fucking 3 months. Or hopefully it's sooner than that, but we know myself. I'm not kidding around here. It'll probably take a fucking long ass time for me to upload again, because kind of lazy. So yeah, I'll get back again eventually. Till then, have a good one. Adios.